I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it. But now the dream is over, and the insect is awake.
No shit.
What up, y'all? It's your boy, Mr. Mar Sharp, Shortman Filmworks in the building. And we have another episode of the Everyday Man's Film Reviews today. Today, we're going to be reviewing the 1986 horror movie, The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. Just some background of my history with this movie. I wasn't really too much of a horror movie fan when I was younger. Very scared of horror movies when I was younger. I didn't start watching horror movies probably until I was about I want to say about 9 years old. Not 10ish years old. I started watching horror movies. And this was a movie that came out in 86, and I actually went to the movies to see this with my father and my brother. And I sat underneath a coat the entire time the movie was going on because I couldn't tolerate horror movies. So I didn't really get a chance to watch this movie until, it was a long time before I started watching this movie, before I ever really actually sat down and watched this movie for the first time. I seen it on TV when it came on, and on TV, back in the day, it was heavily edited. So they cut out a lot of the things that was shown in the theater. So before I could really get my taste on this movie, I really didn't get a good taste of this movie until I was probably about, I was in my 20s when I actually sat down and actually watched this movie full-fledged, uncut, with everything going on in the movie. And I can truly say, like, from what I saw with the, well, I ain't gonna say from what I saw because I watched it a couple of days ago to kind of refresh myself and refresh myself with the movie. But from what I remember, all I remember was this movie being very, very disgusting. From the special effects, from Jeff Goldblum vomiting on shit, and he vomited on one of the guys in the movies. So that was the only real memory I had of this movie when I was younger. That it was really disgusting, and the special effects was, to me, the special effects was amazing for the time in the 80s movies with the horror genres that was jumping off back then. But yeah, let's get into the movie. Basically, The Fly starts off with the character of Seth Brundle. I'm about to call him Seth Gilliam. I don't know where the hell I got that name from. Start off with Seth Brundle, played by Jeff Goldblum, and he meets a scientific journalist by the name of Veronica, who's played by Gina Davis. And pretty much the movie gets started right. It gets going right at the moment we meet Jeff Goldblum's character and Gina Davis. They blossom a romance with each other, which I want to say in the beginning of the movie it's kind of like a slow burn, because you kind of see it's taking its time. Even though the movie is only an hour and 30 minutes, the romance between these two is taking some time. And I guess they do that to build up your sympathy for Jeff Goldblum's character, because you have to have a reason to care about what's happening to Seth in this movie. And in a lot of ways, The Fly, it's a love story, but it's a love story that has a I don't want to say it's a love story that has a horror movie background. It's a horror movie with a love story background. And as it goes along, him and Seth and Veronica build this relationship, and he's starting off by telling her about these teleport pods that he has, about teleporting matter from one area to another area. You know what I mean? And he succeeds by showing her. She takes off a stocking, gives him a stocking. He transports it. I can't get my words together tonight. He transports the stocking from one pod to the next pod, and his ultimate goal is to transport human beings from one place to another. So it starts off this premise where he's you know, he's got innocent intentions. He wants to really do this big scientific thing, and what happens is he ends up transporting himself, but the experiment goes in a horrible in a horrible way, because while he's in the pod, he gets transported to the next pod with an actual fly inside of the pod, but he doesn't know it. You know what I mean? And it all leads about where Gina Davis, she actually was dating her boss, who's her ex-boyfriend. So she's over at the house for him, and then she has to leave the house because she pretty much has to take care of a situation with her old boss or her old boyfriend. And I believe his name was Stannis. I can't remember his last name, but I know he has like this real villain type name. All I can remember the first name is like Stannis or something like that. But he decides to transport himself in these telepods because he's like, okay, well, my girl just left. She's trying to get this situation together with her ex-boyfriend. You know, is she still seeing him? Does she still have feelings with me? So he goes along and he takes the plunge and gets inside of this pod. And the experiment is actually successful. You know, it's successful, but he doesn't know that he has this fly inside this pod. So he tells Veronica that, you know, he succeeded. You know, he transported, you know, himself from one place to the next place, you know. And as it goes along, you know, you see that once once him and his fly has pretty much fused together, he starts to get these superpowers. He has all this strength, and you know, he's feeling good, and he's thinking on another level. And he's telling her at one particular point that, you know, the machine pretty much took me apart and put me back together and made me pretty much a better person. Him not knowing that he's actually about to go through this metamorphosis because of him and his fly being fused together, you know. So you know, the romance continues, but as you can see, it's like he's getting better, but then he starts to deteriorate, because now after a while he starts to fucking falling apart. You know, pieces of his body is falling apart. He's deteriorating. His body is changing. His face is changing. His everything is changing as it goes along in the film. And he starts to see that not only did he get fused with this fly, but now he's actually turning into this insect. You know what I mean? So once he starts transforming and going through the metamorphosis, it kind of starts to pick up, and you start to see a lot of the horror elements coming along. But still, in the same time, you know, you still get the love story between Seth and Veronica, which in a lot of ways it's a touching love story, because I don't know if to look at this thing, I don't know if I don't know if anybody would have been able to hang in it that long with your partner transforming like this. I mean, he's transforming in front of her face, and as he's transforming, it's like she loves him so much where she can't let him go, because she's still there with him. You know what I mean? And eventually you find out that, you know, she's pregnant. You know, they had a little episode where when he got fused up with this fly, they banged and got it in, and he pretty much, you know, knocked her up. You know what I mean? So now she's finding out that, okay, now she's pretty much pregnant with his child, and she don't know what's gonna happen to her now that, you know, his genes, his genetic code has been pretty much transformed into insect, pretty much. You know, so as they go through the story, she's thinking about aborting the baby, and as she thinks about aborting the baby, he's still like, you know, I don't want you to kill the baby because there's still parts of me, and this might be the only thing left of me. Because he knows he's transforming. He knows he's turning into something that's inhuman. And the fact that he knows that, knowing that he's having this baby, he wants to keep, you know, a part of him alive. You know, he's like, you know, there's a scene where he's like, you know, this could be the only thing that's left of me of how I used to be. This is the only thing left of me. You know what I mean? So eventually, you know, she decides not to have the baby, and the old boyfriend Stannis, he's seeing what's going on between Seth and Veronica, and he's kind of on this, I don't know, he's kind of on this mission. He wants to have her back, but he's kind of playing the role of, I don't know. He's kind of trying to play the puppet master. That's what, as I seen it, he's trying to play this puppet master where he's kind of dangling her on a string or whatever, you know. But eventually we get to, the climax, well, the climax of the film where he actually turns into a full-fledged fly, you know, with the makeup effects, and the makeup effects are awesome in this movie. You know, he turns into a full-fledged fly, and then eventually he pretty much tells her like, yo, you gotta kill me. I can't do anything much anymore with how I am. I mean, he's not talking. He's pretty much in a full transformation. And she pretty much just makes the decision, takes the shotgun, and pretty much blows his head off. Pretty much thus ending the movie, you know. So I know pretty much if y'all haven't seen the movie, I pretty much spoiled the whole damn movie. But y'all can go back and watch it because I didn't really give y'all a real full-fledged. I gave y'all pretty much a synopsis of it, but in my opinion, I feel like this was a good movie. I feel like it was a good movie for that time, '86. As I was watching it now, I was getting a little bored in the beginning because, like I said, it's a slow burn. And the first, oh man, I think the first the first 45 minutes is just, you know, it's them establishing the relationship between Seth and Veronica, and it's slow. It's a very slow paced movie in the beginning, and to me it doesn't really start picking up. It picks up a little bit to the point it gets you interested, but it's not really like one of the movies where it starts off slow and then it just, you know, it shoots to the moon. It starts off slow, it picks up some, and then it kind of, I don't want to say flatlines. It elevates real slow, you know. So I'm glad it's only an hour and a half because, you know, it's like, okay, it's an hour and a half. I don't have to really sit through a whole lot of story, a whole lot of exposition of what's going on with the story. You get the point, you get the gist of what's going on with the romance and how they fall for each other, and how Veronica doesn't want to walk away from Seth. Even though he's transforming, she's managed to fall in love with him so much that she doesn't want to walk away in the event of him, you know, turning into, you know, this fly, you know. So, you know, I think the love story aspect of it is good, and it's a good thing because it gets you invested into the characters. You know what I mean? As you get invested to the characters, you don't want to see anything happen to Seth because he has a good heart. You know, when you first meet him, you know, he has this mission of he wants to accomplish this mission. You know, and you feel for him. You're like, yo, man, I kind of want him to get it done because he has this, you know, he has this innocent, geeky, of kind of quality to him where you like, you know, you want to see him succeed, and then when he actually succeeds, but then he succeeds in a kind of, and succeeds in a good way, but it turns out to be, you know, shitty for him because now, you know, he has this issue that's going on. You know what I mean? So I get the point of them pacing the movie the way they paced it, in, you know, the way they told the story, because, you know, you want to be invested in your characters. You know what I'm saying? So other than that, man, I feel like it was a good movie. I think Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum did awesome in this movie. It's three really central characters. It's Gina Davis, it's Jeff Goldblum, and I can't think of the actor who played Stannis. But essentially, the story is revolving around them three. And Jeff Goldblum kills the character of Seth Brundle. I want to call him Seth Gilliam. I gotta really go where I got that name from, man, because I really wanted to call him Gilliam, but he kills this character. He kills it as this character. He plays the nerdy character, and I think Jeff Goldblum, that's his staple. I'm not saying that all the characters that he played always plays these kind of like this nerdy type character, but he has that, I don't know, Jeff Goldblum kind of has that quality about him, even though he played a villain in Deep Cover with Lawrence Fishburne, but he has that quality about him. He pulls it off well. Like, if you see Jeff Goldblum, and if you've never seen this movie, and if you see anything with Jeff Goldblum in it, he always plays these kind of snobbish, geeky, nerdy type characters, and it works for him, you know, and it works for him in this movie all the way. But when he's transforming, he takes on a whole nother level to where, you know, he has this he has this twitch that he does with the character, and I'm like, oh my god, for him to do that, you know, he has this twitch, almost like the fly is almost trying to come out of him in certain parts of the movie where he's talking and he kind of does like this slur with his speech, and the way he does it, I enjoyed the way he did that. Yeah, I really enjoyed the way he transformed himself from being this, from him being a normal everyday guy, and as he's transforming and he's metamorphosing, as he's going through this metamorphosis, he just totally kills it in his speech and his body language and everything like that. Gina Davis kills it as well too. When Gina Davis did so much crying in this movie. She did so much, especially at the end. She did so much crying in this movie. I know that shit tired her out to do all of this crying and all of this, you know, to show so much emotion for this guy. You know, she's believable. You know, she's believable in you seeing that she really loves this guy. You know what I mean? There's a scene that these two have where Jeff Goldblum's character talks about insect politics, and you know, she's trying to understand what he's trying to say, and I think this is kind of like it's kind of like the last straw for Veronica, because she's trying to hang in there with him, and she's like, I just can't do it anymore. And by this time she's pregnant with the child, and she sees him, and he tells her, you know, have you ever heard of insect politics? And the basic breakdown of it is, you know, he's like, you know, the insect has no compassion, you know, he has no morals, he's pretty much a beast, and he's pretty much talking about himself and who he's becoming. And he's like, you know, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And, you know, she's crying, and you can see the emotions coming on her. And he's pretty much breaks it down and says, hey, listen, you can't stay here because I don't want to hurt you. You know, and she cries and she turns around. And that turnaround moment she does, because she turns around and she looks up in the air, and she gives like this gasp. And that right there, I was like, oh man, that right there was just this golden performance, a golden performance right there, because you see, she doesn't want to leave, but she knows she has to leave, but she loves him so much to the point where she has to turn around and she pretty much has to just give up. But you know, as it goes along, she still hangs in for the last ride. But I love that scene between them two, because you know, you see how hard it is for Jeff Goldblum's character to let her go, but he knows he has to let her go, because if not, he's going to end up hurting her. And you see how hard it is for her to see him go through this, and he's pretty much pushing her away, and she doesn't want to get pushed away, but you know, she's like, I got his child, and I don't want to leave him, but I have to, because if I don't, you know, I don't know what's going to happen to me, you know. So I love that scene between them two. So let me break this on down, getting down to the scale. I think I think I give this, I want to say I give this movie 3 thumbs up on the 4 thumbs up scale. I give it 3 thumbs up because of the pacing of the film. I think it was just I think the pacing of the film was slow in the beginning. Like I said, it's a slow burn. You know, if you got time to watch it, it's only an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half movie, and once it picks up, you get into it a little bit more, you know what I mean? But you know, it starts off slow, and then it picks up, and then once it picks up, you know, you get into the movie. But I give it 3 thumbs up for just for the pacing of the story. It's still a good story. You know, I give it 4 thumbs for a good story, because I believe it was a good story. I believe it was I believe it was written well, and I think, you know, just the overall concept of this man wanting to change the world. You know, he wanted to do this experiment, you know, to change the world, basically to make the world a better place. You know, so, you know, it's unfortunate that it turned out the way that it turned out, but you know, I think, you know, it's just, you know, I think that resonates with a lot of people, even on an everyday basis. I think a lot of things that were created in this world were created for better, and then, you know, the wrong hands or the wrong situation, the wrong hands tongue twister. I believe a whole lot of things happen like that. Good things go to happen in the world, and then bad hands get on into the wrong hands, the wrong people touch it, or and things go wrong. You know what I mean? And I think that's a testament of what happens in the world. That sometimes that your intentions can be good, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. You know what I mean? So good story. I love the story of how it came about. Great performances by Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum. I don't really count Stannis. Because he's the villain, but he's kind of really not the villain. I feel like the villain is Jeff Goldblum's transformation. His body is transforming, but you got to have a physical villain, which is Stannis. So he plays his role for what it needs to be. But kudos to Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. Kudos to the makeup effects. The makeup effects are awesome. The transformations, and when he finally becomes the full-fledged Fly at in the third act, it's something that still disturbs me to this day. I watched it and I still can't watch the end of that movie. Like, I can't watch the end of that movie because him transforming just fucks my whole brain up. The makeup effects is just like, oh my god, that shit is disgusting. But you know what I mean. But from what I remember watching, the effects are awesome on watching that. So that's my review on The Fly. If you like this video, excuse me. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Once again, I'll be doing a couple more videos like this, and I thank y'all for coming along for the ride. This is your boy, Mr. Marsharp, and this is the Everyday Man Film Reviews. I will catch y'all on the next video, and y'all take care.